A new animated family Christmas film just hit Netflix, but is it worth your time? Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you seen That Christmas? Is it good? Is it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Let me know all your thoughts so we can have a nice discussion down in the comments below. But getting right into the synopsis. A snowstorm causes big troubles in a small town on Christmas Eve. It's up to the town and the townsfolk to come together and make Christmas Day just right. And taking it right in positive, this is a lively and family-friendly Christmas film that it just goes upon its own riches, is whimsical in the nature of what it does with its magic, and Santa is barely within the film, but he has a presence that ends up bleeding into the true nature of what Christmas is all about the family. The thematic ideas are really present throughout, and it just brings about a lively atmosphere that is just charming to just be able to enjoy, have some laughs here and there, and have these characters that are very simple but have their own archetype that bleed into each other and have the townsfolk's nature that when different troubles come about along the way, you don't have to take certain things too seriously. Car flips over, everything's fine, and certain things that go about along the way that uses the animated features to its fullest extent. It's not the most 3D or extra colorful in some extent, but the colors are still utilized to the best nature, having this Christmas play at the beginning, having things that Santa is used for a specific purpose, but also it's most importantly talking about the true meaning of Christmas, about family, about town, and everything that's balanced in with the community. And there's certain tones that this film tackles that is really strong and important to watch this film for, and it's talking about loneliness, people that don't have a family, talking about loss, and even if it doesn't dive deep into those characters or into those subjects, it makes those characters have a little bit more depth to them, that it makes you want to explore the film a little bit more, dive into this town that has its unique nature to it, that relatively creates that Christmas flair that everyone is on board with what Christmas is all about. And that's where it eventually leads into those thematic ideas that really touches on the art of what this film is expressing, having a voice to give that out. And while some of the narration can be a little on the nose at the beginning, certain things at the beginning and end, by Santa Claus, what he's doing and speaking out the story, it's not necessarily relying too much on being heavy, but it's also not too light in the same way of being too pushy with its themes or too heavy on a dark tone, in order to keep this family oriented and light within the way it's expressing itself by the end of the day. Which takes me right into mixed elements. There's some moments that you may be familiar with. It's not too heavy on that, but some people may be turned off or into it depending on what sort of mood you're into, and just certain things you could get a little bit more out of the characters here and there. If it touched on one subject more than another, it could be a little bit better balanced throughout the whole film what we're getting out of it. I came to find out as I started to watch this film that even though it starts off with Santa Claus and Santa Claus shows up later on in the movie and by the end, this isn't a Santa Claus specific movie as the poster sort of advertises it to be. I didn't watch the trailer. I don't know if that led you into it, but of course some people are just not watching the trailer anyway, so this is something to be aware that this isn't Santa Claus oriented. He is playing some sort of role with how he aids the humans, how he aids the people of the town to persuade everything that's going on the next day. But ultimately, it's the community that works in with the theme. But of course, I just wanted to mention that as well, so you're aware going into it if you haven't seen it already. And also, just this is based on a few different short stories that I can quite notice what's going on with the film. Even though it's just over 90 minutes, it has a feeling that it's a little bit too long in some stretch, because certain ideas feel a little bit elongated by the nature of what it's going about doing. While the writing can be good, the cast can be good, certain points of dialogue have the right tone for what it's doing with its themes. Ultimately, there's certain aspects to the ratio of the film that dives into multiple different stories, and while I'm not familiar with those stories themselves, it just touches upon each of them in a way that doesn't always feel like it's properly hitting all the right tones at all the right times. There's slight tonal shifts that go a little bit too far left, a little bit too far right, from scene to scene, and that can throw off the film just a little bit. Nothing too jarring in one sense that goes from deep depression to light and giddy, but that's what can throw off some of the momentum of the film by the end of the day. And going into the negatives, there's certain aspects with those characters that, yes, I wanted a little bit more out of some, but there's one particular thing about it where, yes, maybe this is keeping them basic in order for it to be kid-friendly, kids understanding what's all going on. Obviously, even the kid characters aren't going to be super complex, what they're doing in life, everything that's going about, that goes about the juvenile humor that can be a hit by the end of the day. But one of my problems is this one character that sort of is the naughty kid, and there's also a nice twin that sort of goes about two different paths of trying to help each other, or the nice girl trying to help the naughty girl get on Santa's list. And there's a contrived instance that I won't spoil what happens for the naughty girl and how that comes about playing, that leads into a good circumstance that still comes about with questionable motives for what the film is speaking all about. Obviously, there's certain things about Santa as the person he is that makes sense for how it's portraying him within stories, but ultimately there's things that go about different motives that just doesn't always end up in the best way by the end, because there's not necessarily a development within the naughty girl that leads her to really change as a person, and you're not necessarily seeing what is exactly going on, because she never confesses a certain thing she did that makes sense for what's going on with the turning point of her plot within the story. So there's certain things that go about with that, a couple things with other characters that they could have explored a little bit more, that really can take back upon what the writing of the story can express by the end of the day. And like I said, with some of the 3 different books that are based on this, it could have been maybe not cutting parts of those stories out of this film entirely. Obviously, it must have blended well enough in this film to make it the film it is, and it's still lively and charming for that motive. But of course, there's still some complaints I have with the way it expresses some of the things. The thematic idea may not always be so clear to everyone until it actually spells it out at the end with the narration. So just little things here and there can take a back burner to what is all going on with the forward plot. But overall, that's just my personal thoughts on that Christmas, which I have to rate a simply 6.5 out of 10. And I definitely recommend you watching it out for yourself, or even with the family, as it might often meant to be made for. So that's just my personal thoughts. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already, to join in the film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.